Well, hello, everybody. It's like bloody deja vu, isn't it? We are back again. I think I've been off this for about 12 hours and we're back on with a live stream. Shout out to all of you in the building, of course. I know it is early. Some people will be turning around and saying, look, Conor, this isn't early. But for a stream on One Leeds, it certainly is. But shout out to all of you in the building. I can see Einar, can see loads of other people as well in the building. And as always, everybody, today's episode is sponsored by IPM Group, a top provider of security and facilities management services across the UK. Leeds fans as well, whether it's CCTV monitoring, give me a pause early on, commercial cleaning or custom security solutions. IPM Group offers 24/7 support. Link, as always, in the description below. Everybody, keep it in the Leeds sphere. And without any further ado, we're going to be talking Daniel Farke. Leeds bringing signings in January already, a topic of conversation. Really, really happy to have this top man on my channel today. We did the counterpoint yesterday, but we've got double bumper episodes to catch up on. I am, of course, delighted to be joined by Mr. Joe Wayman.
Morning, mate.
How's it going, buddy?
Yeah, I'm all right. Not long up. Coffee. The goat.
Have you gone for an instant, or what's happening? I've gone for a.
Yeah.
I went down to the co-op this morning and got one of these triple shots, which I've got a little bit addicted to this morning. Well, in general, Joe, to be honest,
morning. So you've already left the house. What time were you up,
mate? Do you ever like, when you've got something to do? When you've got something to do, do you ever just like, your body just gets you up internally?
Yeah, gets you up, yeah, of course.
Mate, I reckon I went to bed midnight, up at 5, mate. Up at 5. Brutal.
Plenty of them for your drive today, mate. So you're on the ball.
How are we doing anyway, bud? All good?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, a little bit more relaxed over the Leeds situation, I guess. I think another day has passed, another day closer to Cardiff. I just started to feel a little bit more nervous about Saturday, really, just because, like, when I actually look at Cardiff and see they've conceded 11 goals and only scored 1 and the bottom of the league and they've got 1 point, I think, oh my God, he's got to win. He's got to win. So I'm a little bit nervous about that, but I do think we will win. We've got to, haven't we? Yeah,
we have, mate. I think we've spoken about this a fair few times on the channel, haven't we? Just in terms of like Cardiff, Hull, Sheffield Wednesday. They've kind of got to win. I think when me and you've been doing these shows and stuff, we've just been coming on and going, yeah, they've got to win. That's expectation now. And going into Cardiff, it's I'm weirdly like I'm massively confident, but I don't know if it's because I'm like expecting a win. It's like, well, yeah, it's going to happen. And that might be slightly arrogant, bit ignorant, but I'm like, no, top market value of the side in comparison to Cardiff. I know people in the comment section are going to be saying stuff like, Conor, you can't be like that's not how the Championship works. But look, Joe, it's that standard in it that we were talking about yesterday, mate.
Yeah, we've got to beat them. I think, before Sheffield Wednesday and Hull, obviously you're looking at them games differently, but this is probably for me, mate, the first one where we have to knock it out of the park. I'm not saying we've got to win every game, but Hull City aren't a bad side. I know they're down there at the minute and their manager's new and there's churn, but having seen them, they're okay. Sheffield Wednesday had obviously had a couple of good results, but now we're looking really, really bad. So you might look at it differently now than we did prior to that game. But Cardiff, we have to win. And looks like the manager's going to still be in charge as well. So there has to be a sense of domination, a performance worthy of a team at the top of the table against a team at the bottom of the table as well, I think.
What's been your measure of Leeds fans at the minute, Joe? Like, I was speaking with Brownie yesterday. I know we're speaking on your channel, and it seemed from you that it's kind of a little bit 50-50 in terms of Farke. Brownie was saying something similar to me as well. He was on the stream. He was saying, look, I'm seeing people on Twitter saying X, Y, and Z on the debrief last night. I felt it was quite unanimous in maybe improvements, but not as much as Farke out. What's your measure on what's going on with Leeds at the minute, mate?
I mean, I was pretty bullish, pretty positive about Farke. I just see it as 1 loss in 5. I'm not too concerned yet. I spoke to Gaz yesterday on my channel, and
how's he doing, the old boy?
Yeah, he's doing really well. Yeah,
Yeah.
working hard. Yeah, promoted at work, so that's why he's out of the space. But yeah, I was quite surprised at Gaz's response actually, in terms of he seemed, because I don't know. Normally Gaz is quite, and he was quite relaxed, but I think a lot of people are more so on the verge of. I'm
Oh,
not.
really? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's what I'm getting. That's
Yeah,
what I'm getting. Like more so on the verge of. See, if we're sat on the fence, they're more about to jump off and say, "Yeah, it's time to go." Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's.
Whereas with the old boys, the old podcasts, and obviously when we were back on Old Leeds TV, it was very much like
Yeah,
everyone was staunch, wasn't they, Joe? When it was
yeah,
Bielsa, obviously we have to refer to that, but it was
yeah,
Bielsa, and everyone was kind of
yeah.
like backing him up and sort of stuff. And maybe that's like when you speak to the likes of Gaz, and I remember Ryan and all this sort of stuff, and the guys on All Leeds TV and stuff. It was very much of that mindset, wasn't it? It
Yeah.
was like no matter what, we'll back him. And with Farke, it probably comes back to that, Joe, of to be honest, mate, we don't really give a you know what. We just want to get promoted. We don't care who's there really at the minute.
Yeah, the emotional attachment isn't there, is there? But I'd said this on my show before. I think it'll be very hard to ever get to a place where we'll have that emotional attachment with a manager. It's very difficult to do. But yeah, I have been quite surprised. Obviously, I came away from X. I very rarely post my own fucking videos or out on there anymore, to be honest. I try not to engage as much. So I came away from there. But yeah, I'm quite surprised at the majority of the fan base. I think what it is, it's the failure, or the repeated failure to. I think when we lose, sorry, Conor, when we lose the same way every time, and I think that's what's really wrangling people, I guess. And he has to change that. I was talking, like I say, last night, and I think if we look at the games that are coming up, we're going to come up against sides that are probably going to adopt a similar style to Burnley. I know Coventry will, and I guess it's at that stage we'll see whether or not things have moved on. I think, like, if we look at these next four, which are Cardiff, Coventry, Sunderland, and Norwich, he's got to get a lot of points, I think, because if he finally got like 4 points and we were outside the playoffs into the second international break, there might even be a conversation from those that be, because I've said myself front and centre, and I don't want to have a gap between us and bloody sixth. Do you know what I mean? Which I don't think there will be, but I'm just saying hypothetically, if there was, then maybe conversations and questions need to be asked.
Yeah, I think you mentioned yesterday on the show, weren't you? Just really just how you kind of, I mean, in the Championship, I guess, Joe, you can string 5 or 6 wins together, and I mean, we've got a really decent run in November, and this side is more than capable of doing that. Stringing together those results, but I guess you don't want that pressure sort of so early on. If you to get to, maybe obviously West Brom are 5 ahead of us now. I think the team is second, 4 points ahead as well. You kind of don't want that, and I think Oscar was mentioning it yesterday. You don't want that getting bigger and bigger, and you sort of, to your credit, said the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think I want to throw it back to you. Are we in must-win territory for the manager already?
It's weird, isn't it? It's weird, like, no. And I know all the comment section, it's like, Joe, fickle fans, can't criticise him too early. I've got to bring you back to a point that we had at the start of the season, though, and we keep saying this short leash sort of thing. And that's probably why, as we mentioned yesterday, the pressure is so intense. But Cardiff, like, not a must-win, as in it feels like his job's on the line as such, but I mean, surely that game in isolation is a must-win, and it's got to be a must-win. Bottom of the table, on the verge of sacking their manager because of performances, be lucky to potentially stay up this season. I mean, we've got to go to Cardiff and win, haven't we?
Yeah, 100%. And I think for Farke, he has to bounce back. I can't imagine another week of a loss on top of what we had at the weekend. I think it might, from the fans' perspective, I mean, going on social media will be fucking untenable for me, So I think,
me and you just got to learn to stay away from it, haven't we?
I think I know, but it is a must-win, though, isn't it? I think it might
Yeah, I
be.
think. Oh, you think it is?
Yeah, he's got to
Yeah.
win. He's got to win, and you can't go to the bottom of the league and not get 3 points, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. You've got to, especially, listen, after Burnley, and say if we'd have got a positive result against Burnley and you go down and they just defend amazingly and you get a point, yeah, would still not be good enough, but we go, okay, look, these things happen, but then you're looking at 2 points in 2, and that's not good enough. So, and I think Farke will be aware of the pressures now. Like, this isn't Norwich. You spent a lot of money, more than you would have done whilst at Norwich City. You've been given the tools. Yeah, you didn't get a 10, but let's not pretend there isn't more than enough with what we've got. And he's got to find a way to get some positive results. And it sounds mad I'm saying it, obviously, because it's only one loss, but
Yeah, it does feel mad. I'm the same. It does feel mad.
He does have to do that, though, because he can't afford to lose this next one. Nah.
Yeah, and I actually, on a positive slant, I don't think we will. I think we'll go to Cardiff, and I think we'll be completely comfortable. To be honest, Joe, I think we'll win the game. I could see 2 or 3 going in. You asked me a question yesterday, and you said, "Do you think he'll make any changes?" And I thought about the question throughout the day. I even did like a little written bit on it, and it was stemmed from your question really. And I thought, I just don't think he will. I think he'll think that this squad is good enough to go to Cardiff, which I probably think it is, to go to Cardiff and get the win. And maybe that's what he's thinking. But it was interesting how you phrased the question. I was thinking about it later on in the day because you said, he has to, doesn't he? Surely he has to. And when you're looking at the metric of the comments and the community, he's very similar. It's like he's got to change, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I like Gruev, but I think the general consensus is we need a better profile of a midfielder, a more attacking midfielder in there. So I think we might see a change there. Outside of that, maybe not a lot. Maybe not many at all. I just think if he goes with the same, maybe even bringing in Ramazani. But for me, if I'm bringing in, even if I'm bringing in Ramazani, it's dropping Nonto, which I know won't go down with yourself or others in the chat, but that's just the way I would go with it.
I think a lot of people are thinking that, Joe. I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing, mate. I think, with Aronson,
I think he's been good.
Aronson as well. Can you take, is he, like, and also, like, should he? But is it realistic that he's going to take him out after, he clearly likes him. He wanted him to stay last season, didn't he? Had a conversation with him. Clearly had a conversation with him here. Aronson's head seems to be on. I think I mentioned this on your channel. I think I got his performance a little bit wrong after watching it back. Lovely ball through to Willie Gnonto as well. So it's crazy how we're talking about it, innit? After the Sheffield Wednesday game and stuff like that. That maybe, obviously, the last probably I'd said really good performance from Willie Gnonto. But is he out of the front four, the man you change?
I mean, he would be for me, mate. I think Aronson's quite key. At the minute, anyway, and I really like Solomon, and I think Solomon's got that little bit of extra X factor over the rest of the division, and we'll see some good performances from him. But yeah, Nonto for me is flat. Sorry, I can tell it's early. Flattered to deceive. Listen, man, I was talking to Gaz yesterday. I don't know what you feel about this, but he advocated maybe even bringing Joseph out, young lad, and maybe even starting Pirro there for a game.
I've heard that from Brownie. Brownie said the same thing.
Did he? Yeah,
he's not 100% sure. Obviously they missed against Portsmouth, Sheffield Wednesday the other day.
This is why we should have brought a backup in. We should have brought a backup.
Do you know what? Does Pirro press on Coleo show like Joseph does? Does he even get that chance, Joe?
I don't think so. No.
I would strongly, disagree with that. But I can see
the
why.
Conversation. He's a young lad, isn't he? He's a young lad, and you don't want him to keep missing chances, and then it becomes a barren spell, in his mind. Anyway, I
was going to talk about him though, Joe. What your thoughts on him? I mean, it's weird how football works, isn't it? Because obviously it's based on we know you can have an opinion on a player, but it's a lot of it's based on form. And I always say that, but he's gone into the season. He's obviously got 4 goals pre-season. 3 goal involvements. out of 4 in out of his last game, 3 goal involvements in 5 now. 1 goal in his first 5. It's his first debut season. I don't think it's more on Joseph. I think it is at certain points in a game been able to change the dimension a bit. Daniel Jefferson would have been perfect, wouldn't he, really?
Yeah, someone like that. Even like I'd mentioned, Jay Stansfield. I know he ended up going to Birmingham for like 15 million or whatever, so that was never going to happen. But someone of that ilk, you can't tell me that again as well. There's another striker on the loan books of top 6 teams. They would have been, you know, there'd be someone available. This is why I don't take any truth sometimes in when we hear names from the likes of Angus and then say, oh, well, we didn't want anyone else kind of vibe. And it's like, no, there's players out there. So let's not just, there's fucking players everywhere, bro. So you could have got somebody to help shoulder the burden, switch it up. Now, whether or not, maybe they were relying on Bamford, but if they're relying on Bamford, then again, I would say that that's poor from the recruitment team, poor from Farke, poor from the people at the club, because we've known now for at least 2 seasons he cannot be relied upon. I've got a feeling though, like he'll have another week now of training. We'll find out on Thursday, won't we? Press conference, and it won't be long before he's knocking on the door again. And I know the fan base will lose the shit over it, but if he is fit and can stay fit, he will start to play games. And listen, if you get a fit Bamford, it's not such a bad thing. But yeah, look, we should have brought someone in. We should have brought another 10. But look, I try not to get annoyed because it's done now, and we do have more than enough. I can't get away from that fact, because if we talk about every single individual player in that side, they probably get into the most teams in the league. Eve is bang on negligent if they're relying on Bamford. This is true, it is. And but when they've probably said to themselves, look, we spent a lot on Pirro, he scores a lot of goals, but again, he's not used right, is he? He's not used right, because I really didn't understand the Aronson for Pirro switch, because you're just not getting what you get from Aronson from Joel Pirro. So you have to change it tactically at that point, because you're not going to get what Aronson gives you in the 10 from Pirro. So something should have changed at that point. I don't know. Like, the more I speak to you negative folk, the more I'm like,
No, I honestly, I am trying to like, I am trying to. Yeah, it's funny the whole negative stuff, isn't it? I think you even mentioned it yesterday on your channel. To be fair, it's like you can. I feel like you can give Farke the positives, like we were doing.
Yeah.
We've mentioned a few of the differences when it comes to changes, the 3 attacking midfielders and the overlapping fullbacks. But at some stages this season, it's like, bloody hell, we've gone back to 2018, 2019. Really, it's been really good to watch. And you know, the Sheffield Wednesday game was completely dominant. Let's be honest, Joe. At the start of the season, I think we're both looking at Danny Roll and thinking,
yeah,
these could be a bit of a problem here. But obviously, it looks like the player quality is not quite matched what Roll's able to deliver on a coaching level. But West Brom, I could deal with. Borough, I struggled with. I have to be honest. I struggled with Farke's comments afterwards as well. But as we sort of graded it the other day, it's almost was like a 6.5 out of 10 start. But you can give him the flowers. But you know, with what we saw at the weekend, I think it just creeps maybe into that quality low block, which we saw towards the back end of last season, Joe, by many teams, really. Maybe a little bit of panic at points from Leeds, because it felt quite one-dimensional with those X-Factor players. When that didn't work, it was a little bit like, okay, what now? And it did feel like that a little bit at the end. However, there's positives and there's negatives. If it was a terrible start, we'd be giving it a 3-4 out of 10, but we are giving it an above average start, which I do feel is quite kind, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, what more could he? I guess he could have just won every game. I was very critical post Portsmouth. The West Brom, it was a terrible watch, but I think within hindsight now, I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
Going forward, it was, but he stemmed the bleeding because Middlesbrough had happened on it as well, and we conceded
and they've
6 goals.
They've won every game.
Yeah,
West Brom barring us.
Yeah, and Middlesbrough have been doing well as well. It still doesn't excuse that result, because it was shocking, and But yeah, then we had the 3 positive results, 3 clean sheets. But it is that you mentioned that quality low block, and I do think there is a case. Listen, I listened to a lot of pods, as you know, and I'd listened to the second tier. I'd listened to Gabe Sutton's, and I can't remember the other one now. But all 3 praised Burnley.
Is it not the top 20?
It may well have been, mate. Yeah, it's on my feed, so it could have been that. I also listened to Benjamin Bloom's as well, the championship check-in, so it'd have been one of them. So they all praised Burnley, and I do want to chat about that, because we're only looking through the prism of a Leeds fan and seeing our poor performance. But when you actually come away from it, like Ryan Dilks, Leeds played really well. Burnley were just exceptional defensively. Others saying exactly the same thing, and I'm thinking, like Natalie, who was on Gabe Sutton's pod, who's a Burnley fan, and she was saying, like, we have to do that when we go to the big teams in this league. And that's a Burnley fan. You know, she's a Burnley fan saying, you know, Blackburn did that to us because we were the bigger team. We had to go to Ellen Road. You don't play the Leeds of this world every week. And I'm thinking, maybe we are doing too much, because everyone's just talking of how well Burnley did and Leeds were good. But obviously they see us in a snapshot in time, one game or whatever. We see it every week. But I do think, look, as long as this doesn't set in like it did last season, we can get into that last season, the back end, and teams sitting in a low block and putting a right wing back and a right centre back on Somerville, and him being out of ideas, and therefore Leeds being out of ideas. We can speak about that. But if it doesn't set in this season, then it's just it doesn't matter, and that's why I feel that these
maybe Burnley were just really good at doing it, and other teams won't be as good.
Maybe that's my point, right? Now, if we go to Cardiff and they do something similar and we struggle, even if we win 1-0, but oh God, yeah, there was that. We could, if it starts to set in, and I think not only us as being fans, but also those above might also see that and be like, look, nothing's changed. Because what I will say for Angus, he did mention, you know, a lot of the points that we were all mentioning about last season, right? You know, we were over-reliant on one player. He said that came out of his mouth. So they're aware of the same things we are. So if it does set in, then you know, then questions have to be asked. But I do think maybe as a fan base, we were a little bit too, or maybe we are being a little bit too critical on Leeds United and not actually going, you know what, Parker, first, got his tactics spot on. Second, look at that team, look at that midfield, look at how compact, you know, you're a big fan of Josh Brownell. You had Hannibal, who, to be fair, had us on toast.
Yeah, he did well, didn't he?
Yeah. Colioccio's Italian international, much like Nonto. A lot of Leeds fans wanted Anthony back. I mean, I wasn't one, but a lot did. The defense really good. Keeper, it's probably is he what best in the league? He is, I would say. Yeah. Look, he had a tough time in the Premier League, but you know,
so did Natalie.
yeah. Well, Natalie was saying last night, because I was listening to it. She went, you know, he's been on a journey. He went from playing League One, and then his next game was Man City away, and it's quite a culture shock. And then your manager's asking you to play a certain style in the Premier League that doesn't work. He's now back at the Championship, and he's probably having a better time of it. And if we're being on, well, he got man at match. And look, I don't think he pulled off any worldies, but I mean, and maybe our efforts were tame. Like, I got sent a couple of screenshots of them chances yesterday of Joseph and Nonto. And when you see the stills prior to them hitting the ball, you're thinking, how the feck have you missed that? Like, really bad. So, yeah, I think maybe we have to give it a little bit of time. And if in 3 weeks, bro, I'll tell you what will be the big one: Coventry and Cardiff. If after Coventry especially, because Cardiff might have to, the onus is on them, the manager, they still might come out. Whereas I think Mark Robbins will look at how he performed at Ellen Road last year and go, right, this is what we're doing, and follow Burnley's blueprint. And if we come out of that with a similar result as we did against against Burnley, then yeah, we have to say, fucking hell, this is great.
100%. Joe, just going to take a quick break in play here, mate. Just for everyone who wants, listen, we did a bit of a competition on Patreon. If you want to get involved in a competition we're going to do on YouTube, make sure, basically, we're going to release it today, and one of you, I'm going to pay for it, can get a little bit of merch. Now, this is where you get your attention in it, Joe. If someone's been in here for 27 minutes, not 4 minutes or 5 minutes, you're gonna get something here. But yeah, free bit of merch, everybody. The competition is going to be going on for about a week. What I need you to do is like this video of myself and Joe, follow Back4 on all socials, and go out and check one of the articles out on www.oneleeds.com and tell me in the comment section of this video what you liked about it. And that is the competition. We'll put the instructions in the description below as well. But yeah, get involved in that free merch. Right, you asked me yesterday what do you think Daniel Farke's thinking? Do you think he's sort of calm in this situation? Do you think he's thinking to himself, I'm gonna scupper a lot of bits, I'm gonna change this, that, and the other? I think as fans we have a reaction of so and so should be going in, so and so should be going in. Do you think he's just calm, cool, and collected with it, Joe? I personally think we're going to see Gruev at Cardiff. I personally think we're going to get Solomon on the left and Aronson in the 10, and probably, Nonto. I mean, I do think we missed James a little bit at the weekend, which I never thought I'd be saying, but I still think we're going to see something pretty similar, to be honest, mate.
Well, a penny for his thoughts in the press conference after. He was very positive, wasn't he? He was, though, right? So he was pretty positive and said as much, and said, "Look, I know I'm going against the grain, but I actually think we played well." Having listened to Baron Cross, Adam Pope, they were also singing from the same hymn sheet of what and I know they're not managers, but obviously they hear it from the coach and seem to be perpetuating the same message, mate. So I think you could be right. I think from a fan base, obviously, as the lineup comes at 2:00, we'll all be like, not the same.
Is it Joe? Is it good enough right now? Is it good enough right now for us as a fan base? I think we're stuck. I think we're stuck a little bit because we didn't get what we ideally wanted in the window. I think we all rated it. I think I went to 6.5.
Yeah, it was a little over average, weren't it?
Yeah. I think is it right now to be talking about a number 9 and a number 10, or is that when you've got the resources at your door that Leeds United have, is it one of those things where it's ridiculous? Because the thing is, like, Aronson could be a good player, yeah. Nonto's a good player, Perot's a good player. There's loads of players who can fit in that 10. But a specialist 10 is completely different, isn't it, Joe? When you look at an Emi Buendia that Daniel Farke had, that is a specialist number 10. It's very different to players who can play well in that position.
Yeah. And again, that then comes on the recruitment team, doesn't it? Because it's clear now that Farke wanted it. He said as soon as the window's shut, I'm not an accountant. Angus spoke about it on the on the square ball, and I hate when they get and people believe it. Listen, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but when they go, yeah, but we wanted Buendia, why wouldn't we got Buendia? And we want player. I was like, we heard the same messages with Bielsa, if you remember. Well, he wanted we wanted to give him players, but he didn't want them. And then we find out after the fact, don't believe a word they say. I believe there were 10s out there. And for whatever reason, look, at the end of the day, Angus also said, they made more money than they needed to. They ultimately said we needed to sell 2. We sold 3 of the big hitters. Then on top of that, you had all the other little bits, like your Creswell, who was 5 million or whatever, however many. I don't know if it were that much, but you know what I mean? You've then got on top of that, you had Rocker, you had Llorente, you had all these other players that have gone as well. So there was money there. And for whatever reason they chose, and I think the club, again, have probably looked at it and gone, right, well, we've got Aronson then, we've got other players that can play in that position. And again, I will say, the manager does have more than enough for this division, but what for anyone bemoaning creation or chance creation, what does your number 10 do? That's what he's there for, right? That's what he's there for. And of course, you can talk about passing structures and setups to enable you to be able to break down a perceived low block better, of course, but also you do need that little bit of X factor. in games like that, and a number 10 provides us. And when your backup number 10 is Joel Pirro, no disrespect to him, but when you and me both know he's not working in tight spaces, dropping his shoulder and playing a nice little through ball in between two defenders. He's not doing that. He's touching the ball, which goes about 5 yards away from him, and then he's trying to collect it again, or trying to angle for a shot. I don't know. He's just, it's really poor squad building. But again, I don't want to take pressure from the manager away, because there is also more than enough. Yeah. This is the thing.
I think Evie said it in someone in the chat saying the exact same thing. It is kind of that what we've spoken about, and it sounds really, really negative, but it is almost like it's like a ready-made excuse, isn't it, Joe? As soon as things start to go wrong, well, I didn't get the 10.
We didn't, and me saying it, and then people saying to me as well, "You're giving him excuses." I don't want to do that.
No,
but two things can also be right at the same time.
Of course they can. Let's get into a few comments from you guys.
How do you feel about it, Conor? Should they have pushed that envelope a little bit more?
In terms
they could have in going to get a 10, in going to get a backup striker.
Yeah. They should have done. Yeah.
Let's say Joseph get injured in training this week. We're fucked.
Yeah,
we are. We're screwed, and that's not good enough.
And a lot of people will say, yeah, but Conor, but Joe, he's only scored 1 goal in 5. But if you actually break down a lot of the performances, Joe, he's doing so much, isn't he? He's doing so much. And before the game the other day, it was, well, he's done it for club and country, went away, scored against Scotland. Let's be honest, the Spanish national team manager has spoken about Matteo Joseph before as being one for the future. Like that, this is the sort of player we're talking about right now, not a Patrick Bamford or a Joel Pirro, with the greatest of respect. Like I think we have to stick with him. And for me, how he's developed physically and athletically, I think the goals will come. I think that is going to happen. The drop off, though, I think is significant in terms of a profile, Joe. Like, he is completely different to Joel Pirro. Like I mentioned to you, that chance at the weekend, he fluffed it. Pirro might have scored it, but there's no way Pirro's doing that. There's no way Pirro is harrying Koleosho within the first 16 seconds, winning the ball back with his own sort of high press and going through on goal. Yeah, he missed. Pirro might have scored. That's another conversation. But actually, being the architect for his own downfall there, really. But still, he's got to put himself in that position. I think the profile's the worrying thing, Joe. Like, going from someone who's like him, who's not a technician at all, but he's energetic, he's, as I mentioned, athletic, physical, has got a good finish on him. But to someone like Joel Pirro, who's a bit more slower, calm, cool on the ball, a bit more of, like I've just mentioned, a technician. And then the other profile is Pat Bamford, where, I mean, he's lost 2 yards of pace. He can hold the ball up relatively well. Not great at linking play anymore. Can do the channel work. Isn't going to get you a goal. They're all so different, Joe. That's my worry, mate. Like, how does that work in terms of a balance? Like, it doesn't. You know what I mean, mate? It's like the balance is all off. Like, if Pirro is to come in as a number 9, or Bamford, in my opinion, is to come in as a number 9 as opposed to Joseph, there's too much work to do there. Like, even if you're a number 10, like Solomon potentially this season, or Nonso or Aronson, you can't slide the ball in between the left back and the centre back for Bamford like you can do with Joseph. Or you're going to get Pirro just holding back, aren't you? And then you might need runners to go beyond Joel Pirro when he's playing the number 9, like Rutter and him did. It's a real complication, mate. So that is a massive failing, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, massive. Yeah. I was quite critical of them throughout, but I have to just keep telling myself, and I guess the only time they'll get major criticism is if we did get that injury, and God willing, we won't, because that would be
I think he will get a niggle though. I think he will. There'll be some stage this season where I think he'll. But even if it's just 1 or 2 matches, I think. Yeah,
but even 1 or 2 matches for us is huge, bro, because Bamford's never available for 1 or 2 matches. Do you know what I mean?
Who played up top in the Borough game? Was it Joseph? I was trying to think when we did a bit of rotation. Obviously,
well, it'd have been Pirro, surely, I think.
Yeah. Let us know in the chat anyway. Yeah, let us know in the chat, because that was interesting, wasn't it? Because obviously, and I'm not saying that would have been on Pirro, by the way. I'm just saying that's probably the first time we had a bit of rotation. I can't remember us doing anything in that Borough game, but Big games coming up though, isn't there, Joe? Sunderland, Sheffield United. Obviously, that's the one I'm looking at, Joe. And I've digged out Sheffield United a hell of a lot this season so far. So
Bamford played, mate.
But Bamford, right? Okay.
He got a 5.9 rating on Flash. the lowest.
The lowest. But yeah, I think I think Sheffield United are probably the ones. Not because I'm scared of them, but I'm just looking at sort of a game very, very similar to yesterday, the other day, really. So them and Sunderland are definitely the toughest games coming up, aren't they, Joe? But there's a couple of tough ones in there: Norwich away and Bristol City away as well.
Yeah, I think. Oh no, that's after the international break, isn't it? The Sheffield United game comes after the international break. So I was thinking,
is it the first one after?
First one after, mate. Yeah. We've got Cardiff away, Coventry at home, Norwich away, and then Sunderland away, and then we come back against Sheffield United, which
Tasty.
Very tasty, yeah. Look, Sunderland have had their first defeat now, so that we'll see what sets in there. I think that's when they'll get real questions because they've obviously started like a house on fire, but they've got a young squad, an up and coming manager who's done it before in League, and so let's see what happens there. Norwich. Listen, I had a Norwich fan comment on my video saying, we got the best man for the job, and if he would take Farke back in a heartbeat. I know you speak to Norwich fans, so that's just one person in my comments. Coventry's a big one, mate, for me, coming to Ellen Road. I think, because Mark Robbins is a top manager at this level, and I just remember the job they did on us last year. And
battered us down there, didn't they? That was was a bit bad one, that down there, wasn't
it? Yeah. And they got a point at our place, I remember. Because I remember O'Hare like dancing around in the train station because they got a point or something. Have
you heard his London accent that he's suddenly got now?
Good little player though, innit? We could have done with him again on a free. Crazy. He'd have been perfect for us, bro. Perfect,
Yeah, I felt like a lot of their business, as much as like the Twitter stands and the tactical nerds will look at it and go, no, they wouldn't have been good enough for Leeds United. Look at this data, compare to this data. You do look at, I know there was talk of like Roland Salai and all this sort of stuff, but you do look at someone like Callum O'Hare, you look at like Kiefer Moore, don't you? For just as that substitute, you look 100%. At someone like, I was going to say Harry Suter, but he wouldn't fit in, would he? But I don't know.
But you've got Burrows, you've got the man at right, Gilchrist. Who else? They've got a very good Arblaster's class in he. They've got him, and they've got Ahmed Hodzic and all this sort of stuff. So they've got very, very good 11, Sheffield United.
Very good 11, yeah.
It's what's underneath that, so we could do with them picking up a few injuries. But that's going to be a big game. Big game at Ellen Road. I'm excited for that. But let's just hope we're on the back of 12 points, 9 points, and starting to steamroll. Because the facts are we'll have a lot on international duty again, and we're seeing maybe I don't want to give him excuses, but maybe that was another part to play because Burnley had almost 2 weeks worth of getting ready for our game, and they don't have nowhere near as many internationals as us, and maybe that is an excuse for the manager, but there's some tough games coming up, and we need some positive results because this is what happens, I guess, when you're at the top, because there's a level of expectancy maybe we haven't seen before. Because I even think, if we think about Bielsa's second season, were we actually as expectant as we are now? I'm not so sure, because with Bielsa, we're riding the crest of a wave. We're still happy that he'd signed a new deal. The squad wasn't amazing, but we were in love with that squad and we were just enjoying the ride. I think now, I don't think I've ever, it's a must. We must. Not like a hope. Not a hope of we will, please take us back to the promised land, Marcelo. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a different kind of vibe. Whereas now it's,
feels more pressured now, doesn't it?
We must. We have to. We've got to. You've got all this money. You've got these players. You've got to. Whereas I don't think we had that same vibe. If I think back to when me and you were doing content that season, We had like Brentford and whoever else was chasing down us at the time. But I don't know if that level of expectancy was there. I tell you what, I do remember while I'm on about that, because we went. Let's not forget this as well. By the way, you'll remember this. In that Bielsa second season, we went 12 games without a win. Do you remember?
Right?
And then 12. And then we went down to Brentford. Do you remember? Kiko makes the error and Morpay scores, and then Cooper makes it 1-1.
Was that 12 games?
12 games, bro.
Jesus Christ.
Exactly. And we won that league by 10 points.
Bloody hell. Yeah. And what
was it?
Was it 83 points as well? Or was it?
Like
It was 93, wasn't it? I think
because we had a proper wobble. Do you remember? And then we went down to Brentford, and within first half, Kiko slices it, and I think Morpay makes it 1-0, and we're like, oh no, it's continuing again. And then Cooper.
Here's one. Would you take Kiko over Melia?
No. Things like that bad. Bloody hell. Things like that bad.
I saw a podcast Under the Cosh earlier on with Nigel Martin. I thought
I've not watched it yet.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Did
you
see the Sam Allardyce one the week before? About how we'd gone from the most fittest side to basically crazy.
It's funny when he asked about Rutter as well. When they asked about Rutter, he's not good enough.
Yeah. Which he wasn't, no, was he, for the Prem?
And then Conor, he said to Conor in January, bring me in January, and Conor said no. Yeah, whatever he said. But yeah,
Do you think
go on.
Had he have had longer to work with them, would have stayed up?
Oh, I don't know. God,
instead of grass. Yeah.
I think it'd have been closer. Yeah,
yeah,
I think it'd have been closer. He just made us a little bit more resolute, wouldn't he? And at least you can definitely increase the fitness when you've got 6
that
months.
Penalty miss against Newcastle, was it? And then we had.
Was he in charge for the Leicester? Was he in charge for the Leicester one?
Yeah, when Bamford misses that last minute.
I proper wanted him to ask him. I wanted them to ask him about Bamford. I just wanted to hear about it. They didn't do it, did they? But yeah, I know what you mean. It does feel very feels methodical, doesn't it, this year, Joe? It's like with Bielsa, we'd experienced the heartache of Derby together, the Lampard Spygate, and it was very much like we're in this together. There was it was unexpected when Bielsa came in that he was going to do what he was going to do. We had so many amazing moments like Blackburn, Villa, etc.
Yeah,
Derby away twice, and it was just one of those where it was like, oh wow, we're in it together, and it just I don't know, it felt like as a common thing we're going to do it next year, and yeah, I definitely felt more towards it, and that's not to say I'm less of a Leeds fan now. Of course, it's not, but yeah,
but there is a more what's the word like. There's not that deep-rooted love with the manager and the squad and all that sort of stuff. It's more transactional now. It's more like, right, okay, you're getting paid the money. We come and now you've been brought in to get us promotion. Get it fucking done. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot more transactional now, I feel. It is for me anyway, than a like, oh my God, like, please. I don't know how you feel about that, but yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And Revy says, "Mr. Bielsa out, Conor." There we go. Yeah, the end. I thought we needed to change, but I mentioned this yesterday. Like it should have been managed a lot better. But listen, at some period, it still didn't mean that we didn't have some 3 beautiful years with him, and how I absolutely adored watching Marcelo Bielsa and Leeds United. And hey, brought my family together. Bielsa was just king for years. It just got sour at the end, didn't it? So. But yeah, mate, I guess we'll leave it there. It's been a nice little chat. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, everybody. Keep it coming in as well. I know it's earlier on in the morning, but Joe, thanks so much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. Your time, of course.
Yeah, man.
And what have you got on? What have you got going on today?
I'm speaking with Joe around lunchtime. Yeah, and I think that's it, mate. Champions League tonight, but I don't want to overdo it, so I might have another early night. Been watching American Office, just trying to regulate and get more of a plan and stuff, because you'll know yourself sometimes when you do too much of this and stuff, it can fry the head a little bit. So I've been out with a dog in the woods and that, mate, enjoying what will be left of the warm weather, because autumn's soon coming, and then we'll all be indoors during winter. Yeah, miserable because I mean I can't get away with these people that love Halloween. Like there's loads of them. They're like, "Wow, I love my Halloween." They do the house up. I love outside. The leaves falling. I'm like, no, give me sun 24 hours, 24 days a week. What?
100%.
You know what I mean, don't you?
That's all. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, Halloween.
Yeah.
I've never. It's just.
I'm touching grass. That's it. I'm touching grass. That's what I always say to people. Go outside and touch grass. I'm actually doing that.
All right, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for joining, and we will see you in a bit. Cheers.